All right, we're here at Dave Asprey's Biohacking Conference, arguably probably one of the best biohacking events, if not the best, since it's the OG event. So we got over 4,500 people here and all interested in transformation, health, and wellness. And I got Dan Pompa here, and he's probably one of my favorite humans on the planet. Probably largely responsible for me being alive, honestly. So
likewise,
yeah,
you're one of my favorite here.
So Dan is actually one of the OGs in this industry, the functional medicine industry. All these influencers that you're seeing here are all sort of standing on the shoulders of pioneers like Dan. Dan has been talking about toxins in our environment, and he's been talking about neurotoxic illnesses and autoimmune disorders probably before anybody that I know, honestly.
Back when people were like, what?
Yeah, people like where it was so cryptic.
Yeah.
And now we have it in the White House, right?
Yeah.
You know, now it's like we have Make America Healthy again. So it's an amazing time that we're living in where there's a complete cultural reassessment of our relationship to our environment and synthetic foreign aspects of our environment, right? These molecules that are just embedded everywhere, right? And I kind of diagnose it just internally. I kind of look at the whole situation, all the illnesses, right, that are seemingly like isolated, unrelated illnesses. I see them as like extensions of a process. I call it nature divorcement syndrome, right? You know, degrees of separation from the collective natural intelligence that creates, shapes, and sustains our bodies, our environments, and our life. Because we live in this collective organism that we call Earth, right? And we talk about the innate intelligence, right? And the innate intelligence in our bodies, we talk about that all the time, because ultimately working with the innate intelligence is how I got my life back.
It's how I got my life back.
It's how he got his life back.
Remove the interference, the body knows how to heal.
So everything that we do, whether it be Kava, or whether it be detoxification, or whether it be supplements, whether it be red light therapy, or whether it be sunlight, or whether it be any of these things, we use strategies that help to support, feed, and amplify that innate intelligence at its base.
Yeah, that's right.
And anything that we do, what I've learned, right, anything that we do that starts to contradict or undermine or create interference, we start to break down.
That's right.
Right? What I wanted to ask you is, I mean, I could ask you a million things right now, but being one of the people,
one of which is, why is that dog just sitting on
it's like,
your
why
lap?
the hell do we have a dog with us?
Because, I don't know, go play.
Because this
go
is
play.
part of
There you go. Okay, there.
the dogs come with the Pompas for sure.
Yeah,
It's part of it, but it's a great thing. Being one of the first people that was really talking about what's going on in our environment, which is, again, it's a process of like, what you teach is a form of nature reintegration, right? Mm-hmm. It's about honoring the innate intelligence, the God-given innate intelligence that's there, and it's about addressing things that are creating interference with that intelligence, right? I talk a lot about the idea of coping healthy or responding to discomfort in a way that doesn't compress us and doesn't lead to a degeneration, right?
That's the premise of hormesis. Meaning,
exactly.
If you adapt to the stress, you get stronger, faster, healthier, smarter, whatever.
More resilient.
If you do, or is it more resilient? If you don't adapt, you get sicker, slower, dumber, less resilient.
Literally
more chemically sensitive, more mold sensitive.
It's a degeneration.
Yeah, absolutely. We've both been
more
there.
reactive.
Yeah, exactly. So we
get in your animal brain.
We had to keep raising our hormetic ceiling, meaning our ability to adapt to society stresses. And as that happened, then we were able to function again.
Yeah.
But we weren't. Both of us at one point were not able to function in society.
Yeah. So even these terms like we're throwing like nature reintegration and stuff like that, honoring the innate intelligence and everything, at the end of the day, whenever we align ourselves with the fundamental intelligence that created and sustains us and that built us, we become more resilient, because I actually believe that we're resilient by nature, right? And a lot of, being well and actually living a life at the highest level and being able to experience consistent peak mental and emotional states, and to be able to have great friendships and relationships and careers, and just to be able to function optimally as a human and to adapt, it's all about reclaiming that resilience. It's dissolving the barriers that we've created.
I have to tell them this story because they probably don't know this story, where Kava came about.
Yeah.
So, this is true. I first started helping Cam, that was, I don't even know how many years ago. I remember the conversation
at least a decade ago.
Yeah, a decade ago. Yeah. And obviously, you couldn't tolerate life at all. You were probably eating 4 to 8 foods. You drank 1 water you could tolerate, right? And
I even lost that at one point.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember when you lost the ability to do water or food, they literally sent you home to die going,
10 seizures a day, you know what I mean?
He literally went 12 days without food or water, and your dad called me and was like, what do we do? I said, innate intelligence will tell him to drink, and then his body will accept water again. Long story there. But, however, it got to the point where we were detoxing him, he could barely tolerate any little bit of detox. I mean, we were microdosing everything. So I said, Cam, you were stuck on Klonopin at that time, remember?
Okay. Benzodiazepines,
benzodiazepines.
It's like Xanax for people that, that
but
class
it allowed him to deal, with at least function at some level of tolerance, right? Okay, so, but the problem is it was working less and less, right? But I said, Cam, I'm not the expert here, but you're going to have to research something more natural that taps on the same physiological receptors, the same part of the nerve system, et cetera, et cetera. And I can make some suggestions on some of the things, but you're gonna have to figure that out because we're gonna need something as you come off of this to lean on.
Yeah.
And I remember you coming back with boom, 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 but
spreadsheets.
Yeah, exactly. Because I knew he was smart enough to actually do this, okay? I didn't have time to do it. I knew where I had to get him to detox him, but I knew that he had to come off the medication. So anyways, he starts into this research and presenting it to me every month as it's growing. But he said, I found this Kava strain. And I said, that's interesting, but Kava, I had some pushback on. He said, yeah, but one of the things I realized is not all Kava is created equal.
Yeah.
And anyway, bottom line is I found this strain. So he starts experimenting with Kava.
Yeah.
Right? And
sourced from literally the opposite side of the world.
So to bring this whole conversation around, the Kava was working to the point where it got him to adapt to more and more stress. Therefore, we could detox him more and more.
Yeah.
And Tru Kava was born.
It was literally like pure food for resilient, like pure food for the parasympathetic nervous system is what it is, right? It's like the strongest natural compound in its full like plant medicine form that literally builds resilience immediately. And what we mean by even resilience, right? It hits on basically every single neuro and tissue protective pathway that we know of.
Yeah.
Everything from the GABA system to the COX system to the NRF2 system to, all these things across the board, right?
Kava raises the hormetic ceiling, and again, hormesis just means you're able to adapt.
Yeah.
Let me give you people out there an understanding of that. If you hire a really good trainer, they are able to train you in such a way that keeps raising that hormetic ceiling, meaning your ability to adapt and therefore perform better at a higher level.
Yeah.
So the trainer changes stressors, gets you adapt, gets you to rest better, do this better, the nutrition, everything, all these factors, and is able to induce more stress with higher adaptation. Therefore, you get healthier, faster, stronger, et cetera, et cetera. So,
pressure makes diamonds.
Kava,
that's basically it.
To your point, Kava, it really taps on all of those things that are innately in our body that help us make that adaptation.
Right.
Raise the hormetic system.
And what's so interesting about this, and you hit on an amazing point, right? Because I don't forget about this stuff, but just so much has happened since then. Whenever I first kind of like hit that gold mine of like sort of come back and I'm like, actually this like reduced all my reactions and seizures by like 80%, and all of a sudden I can eat food again and all this shit.
It allowed us to detox.
Actually, I always tell people that there is no one pill, powder, lotion, or potion that's going to turn around a serious degenerative chronic disease process, right? Or to even optimize someone ultimately to their maximum, because it takes a multi-therapeutic approach for everything, right? Because we're not single-celled organisms that just like need one individual thing or ingredient. We need the elements, and we need a lot of different things, obviously. And these things stack and they work in synergy, obviously, you know? Exactly. You need food. It's like the fundamentals, good coaches teach the fundamentals in sports, right?
Tell them about Building 7.
Yeah.
Speaking of adaptation and raising the ability to adapt.
Yeah, so I was embedded in a community of people when I was at my most sick that had so low adaptation potential, right? That had so low resilience potential that they couldn't tolerate virtually any form of external stimulus. That means
if you brought a cell phone into Building 7, you would be attacked, escorted out, something bad.
Well, what we mean by that is that people even became sensitive to electromagnetic energy. That's actually not such a crazy idea anymore. If we were to talk about this 10 years ago.
I was sensitive.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, it is a form of stress in the body because it's a non-native form of energy to the body that's not part of the body's natural electrical systems. But the thing is most people adapt to it, don't feel it. It still has biological impact, but most people aren't reacting to it. These people were so sick that the body couldn't even adapt to like invisible energies.
Yeah.
Right? And so they would walk into a room, someone's cell phone would ring and they would go into a seizure, you know? Yeah. So we had to be quarantined. We were quarantined in this place called Building 7. Yeah. It was literally like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. I don't mean that in order to like, disparage anybody.
We were there.
We were there.
Was us, so
I was in the nest, and I was a cuckoo.
Me too.
but not really. You know, I still had a sane, grounded person inside of me, but your body is in complete chaos, right? And you can't make heads or tails of a lot of things.
Couldn't adapt to any stress, let a physical, chemical, or emotional, and life becomes very difficult to live. And these people were the extreme example of it. But
it occurs on the spectrum, though. The average person is like somewhere in the middle, right?
Of course.
Where it's like they just have like mild limiting factors to their performance and their ability to show up at their highest potential, right? And you know, I hear a lot of people saying this all the time. It's like, well, why should I look at reducing my alcohol consumption, for example? Like, I'm not like, my life isn't in complete ruins. But that's not the only reason to stop doing things. There is trying to reach that other end of the spectrum that is optimal. And it's sort of like always looking at, is there a way I can have my cake and eat it too? It's like, can I produce elevated, sustainable mental and emotional states? Can I build my own chemistry from within? That's sort of like, I talk about that a lot, but it's also just with basic function, right? If you rely on the innate intelligence and feed it, and you nourish it over a period of time, and even use technologies that amplify it, you can have sustainable results that you don't have to be dependent on any outside system, compound, drug, because ultimately you'll be a slave to that thing. But you said something actually that was really important, because I almost totally forgot about this. When I found Kava in that form, because it was a deep dive of like the nuances of this plant.
Do you tell that story much? I mean,
yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, pretty much all the time actually. But so when I came across that, sourced it from Polynesia and got in and developed a level of expertise like pretty fast, because I was desperate, obviously. I brought it back to Dan, and we were talking about it and started trying it with other patients and everything too, right? You know, just other sensitives and stuff like that, and kept reproducing these positive results. And I was giving it to all these people, but it was in this really, really crude form, right? But I started noticing that it was doing the same thing across the board. And what I know that you were noticing, and I was noticing too, is that it's not the complete answer, like I was saying, you know, to anything. I had to ultimately, it was a great leverage tool. Tremendous leverage tool.
That's right. It leverages hormesis.
To interrupt the degenerative pattern that was having me spiral out of control, right? I needed to get my symptoms under control, because a lot of times so many of us, like our ailments, stress, trauma, disease, chronic disease, we're paralyzed by our stress in the state of it all and the chaos that's going on.
Absolutely.
And interventions like Kava can help to intervene to actually control those symptoms like immediately. It's something that you can just take, anybody can use.
Well, and again, it allowed us to step into the detox you needed.
Right.
Deeper detox, you could tolerate the stress, and then we were able to remove the interference, and then your body started healing.
It was a tremendous leverage tool.
It was a leverage tool.
It was a leverage tool that we use basically to get underneath the hood to do the deep work.
And we find that. We find that with other cases. I found it, that we've had to leverage things like Kava to get someone to the ability to where they can tolerate the detox, remove the interference, and then healing starts to happen over time.
And I think we just found too, it's just like, it was just such a tremendous tool, even though it takes a multi-therapeutic approach to really get people permanently well. It was a great, like, immediate intervention tool that could sort of get the immediate symptoms under control to allow people to be more engaged and more compliant and actually integrating more of a complex system that requires, as we both know, working systems over a period of time. Getting your health back totally is a long game.
Absolutely.
If you can give someone something that's natural, that doesn't deplete their neurochemistry further and actually helps to start healing that neurochemistry and balancing out the system.
Well, and that was the problem with the drugs. The benzodiazepines, it's like they were depleting you.
It's a credit card. I call them chemical credit cards, right? They borrow from tomorrow's resources to pay for today.
Absolutely.
So you end up in debt with your body's own chemistry. The problem is, when you're already bankrupt, you can only charge so many things to a credit card before you have to pay it back with interest.
You end up in building 7 when you have bankrupt.
Exactly. So when you take the credit card away, all of a sudden you're in debt and you're in a huge hole, and that's withdrawal. That's the withdrawal process. So a tool like this is a tremendous tool that you can implement into, obviously, people that are very sick, but then obviously people that just want something as a pattern interrupt, as something healthier that they can use instead of alcohol from a recreational standpoint.
I would say that's why most of the people here are using it, right? I mean, they just want the brain focus there. They just want that, feel that.
And it really is funny too on the alcohol thing, and you're probably seeing this too, just in patient population, just more and more. The statistics are staggering about how many people are drinking less alcohol. Right? Even the young generations. Even like Gen Z, there's a large percentage. It's like 40% of Gen Z is drinking less alcohol, right? Less. Or is it somewhere on that spectrum? And alcohol sales have dropped by 10% in the last 10 years. Which is huge. That's a global number.
I think at COVID though, it did go up, and now it's dropping.
Exactly. There was a period of time where that
was going down, and then COVID went up, and then now it's going down again.
And I think it's more just we're being more honest about what it is. It's starting to move into that place slowly that cigarettes is occupying. You know how cigarettes in the 1950s was fully embraced by the culture like alcohol has been? Now it's still here. Like, alcohol's not going away, but it's moving out of the place of being fully embraced.
Yeah, no,
you know,
totally. And I
like-
think it needs to take the seat where it used to be. Alcohol used to be something that you'd have a glass of wine with certain dinner, you know, certain foods and dinner, and it would be a very social thing. Alcohol became this party thing. It's
Yeah.
like, and that's a U.S. thing compared to Europe. It's treated very differently.
Yeah.
There was a huge negative. I think it's
Exactly.
going to go back in its proper place.
Exactly. It's
you
not
know,
going away.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
not going away, but it'll be put into a proper place of.
Proper place of us just honestly, like, being honest about what it is,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And not having the denial around the fact that it is a metabolic poison, but it's not necessarily like there's no place for it. Like, the whole Sober Curious movement's not an anti-alcohol
Look,
movement.
every blue zone drinks alcohol, but again,
Yeah,
they're not
exactly.
drinking alcohol like what happens in the United States
exactly.
either. Yeah,
and it
so,
hasn't become this sort of crutch to where it's like the go-to to deal with every single ailment and problem.
That's when,
you know?
that's when you're in problem.
That's whenever the bucket overflows and whatnot. So, yeah. So, anyways, man, it's been great talking to you.
Fun stuff, man.
We
All
could definitely do 3 hours, but
I know. Yeah, we'll catch up. We'll do another podcast. Yeah.
All right, man.
Love you, bro.
If you like this information, thank you so much for supporting us in the Tru Kava movement. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thanks, guys.